Before you scroll away, let me tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. But if you stay with me, it could change the way you see your life. Right now, at this exact moment, your future is being decided. Not by some big opportunity, not by luck, not by talent, but by the small choices you make when no one is watching. Most people never hear this, and that's why most people stay exactly where they are. You've been told to wait for motivation, to follow your passion, to start when you feel ready. That advice sounds good, but it quietly destroys potential. Because while you're waiting to feel ready, time is moving. While you're waiting to feel inspired, someone else is building discipline. And discipline always wins in the end. If you've ever started something and didn't finish it, this is for you. If you've ever promised yourself, this time will be different, and watched yourself fall back into the same patterns, this is for you. And if a part of you already knows you're capable of more, but you don't know why you can't seem to access that version of yourself, don't leave. Because what you're about to hear isn't motivation, it's clarity. By the end of this video, you won't be asking how to change your life. You'll understand why you haven't yet, and exactly what's been holding you back. This isn't about working harder. It's about thinking differently. It's about stopping the silent habits that are draining your power and replacing them with something most people never develop. Stay with me until the end. Because once you see this clearly, you won't be able to unsee it. And from that point on, every excuse you've been using will lose its grip. Most people are waiting for motivation, and that is the first mistake. Motivation feels powerful, but it is unreliable by nature. It comes and goes based on sleep, mood, praise, weather, comparison, and circumstance. If your progress depends on motivation, your progress will always be unstable. You will move forward only when conditions feel right, and life rarely offers perfect conditions. That is why so many people feel stuck, despite knowing exactly what they should do. Knowledge is not the problem, waiting is. Psychologically, motivation is a response to emotion. Discipline is a decision made in advance. One depends on how you feel. The other depends on who you decide to be. When you wake up and ask yourself, do I feel like doing this today? You hand control of your future to temporary emotions. Emotions are information, not instruction. They tell you what you feel, not what you should do. The moment you let emotion lead action, you weaken your ability to act when it matters most. This is where consistency begins to separate people. Consistent people are not more excited than you. They are not more inspired than you. They are simply less dependent on how they feel. They understand something fundamental: action creates motivation, not the other way around. When you act first, your brain follows. Neuroscience supports this. The brain rewards completed actions with dopamine, not imagined ones. Waiting to feel motivated keeps the reward system inactive. Acting, even without desire, activates momentum. Philosophically, this comes down to self-governance. Either you govern your actions, or your impulses do. There is no neutral position. When you choose discipline, you are choosing long-term meaning over short-term comfort. Comfort feels good now, but it demands payment later. Discipline feels heavy now, but it pays you back with interest. This is not punishment, it is alignment. It is choosing to live according to values rather than impulses. People often say, I just need to get my mindset right. But mindset is not something you wait for. Mindset is built through behavior. Confidence does not come from thinking confident thoughts. It comes from doing difficult things repeatedly and surviving them. The same is true for consistency. You do not become consistent because you feel consistent. You feel consistent because you have acted consistently long enough for your brain to accept it as truth. Every time you skip a commitment because you didn't feel like it, you teach your brain a lesson. Discomfort is a valid reason to quit. Every time you show up despite resistance, you teach your brain something different. Discomfort is survivable and progress continues anyway. Over time, these lessons compound. You are not just building habits, you are building character. There is also a deeper psychological cost to inconsistency that few people talk about. When you repeatedly break promises to yourself, even small ones, you erode self-trust. You begin to doubt your own word. And when you don't trust yourself, you hesitate. You overthink. You seek external validation. You look for motivation from others because you no longer believe your own internal voice. Consistency restores that trust, quietly, gradually, powerfully. Discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It is about being honest. Honest about what your future requires. Honest about what your current habits are producing. Honest about the fact that no one is coming to save you with a burst of motivation. When you accept that, something shifts. You stop waiting. You start acting from responsibility instead of emotion. Many people misunderstand discipline as rigidity. In reality, discipline creates freedom. When your actions are consistent, your mind becomes calmer. You no longer waste energy debating whether to act. The decision has already been made. This reduces mental friction. It conserves willpower. It creates clarity. You stop asking, "Should I?" and start asking, "How well did I do today?" That shift alone changes everything. Think about this. The most powerful people are not the loudest or the most aggressive. They are the most predictable to themselves. They know that regardless of mood, they will show up. That certainty creates internal stability, and internal stability makes you resilient. When life becomes chaotic, consistent people do not collapse. They default to their systems. They keep moving while others freeze. This is why forcing yourself to be consistent is not cruelty. It is leadership. You are leading yourself through resistance instead of abandoning yourself to it. You are saying, "I don't need to feel good to do good." That statement alone separates adults from children, leaders from followers, builders from dreamers. And here is the paradox that changes everything. The more disciplined you become, the less discipline you need. What begins as force becomes routine. What feels heavy becomes automatic. What requires effort becomes identity. The brain adapts. Resistance fades. Consistency stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like alignment. If you wait for motivation, you will always need it. If you act without it, you train yourself to operate independently of it. That is real strength, not emotional intensity, but emotional independence. So stop asking yourself how you feel. Start asking yourself what the standard is. Then meet it again and again and again. Because the moment you stop needing motivation to move, you stop being controlled by circumstances. And when that happens, consistency is no longer something you try to do. It becomes something you simply are. And that is where everything begins. Most people approach consistency like a temporary strategy. They treat it as something they need to do for a few weeks, maybe a few months, until results show up. And when those results are slow or invisible, they abandon it without realizing the real mistake they're making. Consistency is not a phase. It is not a tactic. It is an identity. And until you understand that, you will keep cycling between effort and exhaustion. Psychologically, the strongest force shaping your behavior is not motivation or willpower. It is self-image. You always act in alignment with who you believe you are. If you see yourself as someone who tries, you will try until it becomes uncomfortable, then stop. If you see yourself as someone who starts strong, you will start strong and fade. But if you see yourself as someone who finishes, someone who shows up, someone who does what they said they would do, your behavior begins to follow that belief automatically. This is why short bursts of intensity rarely change lives. Intensity feels impressive, but it doesn't rewrite identity. Anyone can push hard for a day or a week. That doesn't change who you think you are. Identity changes through repetition, through doing the same thing so many times that your brain stops questioning it. At that point, consistency is no longer something you force. It's something that feels normal. Most people sabotage themselves because they keep negotiating their identity. Every day they wake up and decide again who they are going to be. Productive or distracted. Disciplined or indulgent. Focused or reactive. That constant negotiation is exhausting. High performers eliminate that debate. They decide once. They say, "This is who I am now." And then they structure their behavior to match that decision. Philosophically, this is about integrity. Integrity is not about morality in the abstract. It is about alignment between what you believe and how you behave. Every time your actions contradict your values, you experience internal friction. Over time, that friction becomes anxiety, frustration, and self-doubt. Consistency resolves that friction. It brings your inner world into order. You do not become consistent by demanding perfection. You become consistent by demanding honesty, honest standards, honest effort, honest follow-through. When you stop trying to impress others with dramatic effort and start trying to respect yourself with reliable action, your entire approach changes. You stop performing. You start building. Identity-based consistency also changes how you respond to failure. When consistency is just a tactic, failure feels like proof that the tactic doesn't work. You quit. When consistency is part of your identity, failure becomes information. You adjust and continue. You don't collapse because your sense of self is not tied to immediate success. It is tied to showing up. There is a quiet confidence that comes from this. Not arrogance, not loud motivation, a grounded certainty. You no longer need external validation because your self-worth comes from internal alignment. You know who you are because your behavior reminds you every day. That kind of confidence cannot be shaken by opinions, algorithms, or comparison. This is why people who are truly consistent appear calm. They are not rushing, they are not panicking, they are not constantly reinventing themselves. They trust the process because they trust themselves. That trust is earned, not imagined. It is built through countless small acts of follow through that no one